everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fear the Walking Biters. This is
Fear
Dianne.
the Walking... What? And always your zombified 30-something. God, it feels like we did this about,
half an hour ago?
25 minutes ago?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Ugh.
So, we're repairing a little technical failure, which my friend Todd would completely blame on the Macintosh. Completely. Mm-hmm. So we're here with Season 2, Episode 7, which is the mid-season finale of Fear the Walking Dead.
And the differencing opinions, the tale of two hosts here.
Yes, we had very different opinions about this episode. So this is going to be interesting. It was when we first recorded it, and it will be interesting to revisit it. So tell me first what you got in terms of a rating.
I thought, I considered, I pondered, I had the last 30 minutes of a recording to kind of reflect, and I am still giving it 4 shovel scoops out of 5.
And I am still giving it 2 out of 5 barbecued Daniels.
Barbecued Daniels, because she thinks he's dead.
I'm convinced he's dead.
No.
So it's going to be very interesting to A, get finished with this podcast, B, hear what our listeners have to say, and C, watch it again, because obviously I'm going to do that.
Yes, there's been some convincing going on here on how this was not that bad of an episode. I enjoyed it. I think we had a lot of decisions, and that's, to me, what makes this episode very special, and we'll get into it later here coming up, that people were forced to make decisions.
Although
in
at
this episode.
Point, I'm being decisive and not letting go of my 2 out of 5.
Yep, we'll see.
We'll see. So just to recap some numbers, last week, Circuit Service was 4.49 million on Same Day View, and that's pretty consistent with where we had been with the previous episode. Couldn't get Live Plus 3, unfortunately, so I don't have that comparison. But I was telling Brian, as we were recording this the first time around, just to kind of put it in perspective, NCIS had 17 million people for its season finale.
But there's a bunch of purple-haired old goats who are still watching that show.
And you're probably right. I think that's fair. But...
And think about how many people just say, I haven't watched the show in 3 years, but it's a finale, so I'm going to chime back in.
Well, and I did hear something about, I hope this is not a spoiler, possibly an incestuous lesbian affair on Game of Thrones. So God knows what other people were watching.
Yeah, I would have flipped over if I had HBO.
So the other numbers the numbers were pretty much that I wanted to talk about last week, and I wanted to talk about our ratings this week. And then the title. So the title was Shiva.
Yeah, I'm sure you had some time to do some internet research. So let me hear what you got, and then I'll give you my thoughts.
So poor Brian, he gets to listen to this again. But here's the thing. Shiva is a Hindu god, and he is the god of destruction. And some people would actually argue that he's also a creation god, the creator god. Although other people would tell you that Brahma is the creator god in that mythology. And I thought there were some things that were really pertinent to this episode. So one of which is that Shiva's duty at the end of time is to destroy all of the worlds and dissolve them into nothingness. And I definitely think we saw a lot of that tonight. We saw a lot of people's worlds being dissolved into nothingness.
So I believe that the whole Shiva point of burning it down and building it back up, ad-libbing there, is in reference to the relationships that were ultimately ruined and then refashioned in some way or repurposed in some way during this episode. I think it was huge. I think it was telling. I think lots of people either had their hearts broken or new alliances forged. And it's very telling. We'll get a bunch of it into the Rotten Potpourri section, but think on that for a little bit, listeners, as we plug through this, and you'll love it.
You actually asked me if I thought what I thought about relationships and if any relationships survived and that kind of thing, and I was like, hell no, they are all messed up. So,
yeah, lots Lots of safe spaces are going to be needed after this episode for our cast.
And so another thing that I thought was interesting is that the person who wrote the article about Shiva that I accessed basically said that Shiva is kind of a destroyer god in the model of an artist, a surgeon, or a cook. So yes, they destroy things, but they renew or regenerate at the end of that process of destruction. They're creating something newer or better out of the materials that they've got. And I think when you look at it in terms of the relationships, the context that you were using, we're definitely seeing maybe not renewal, but regeneration of relationships or creation of new relationships.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of both. I think it's, there's a lot of mayhem that happened, and I think our cast and crew are trying to figure out how to deal with it in lieu of those relationships.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we'll talk about it more, but you talk about pretty soon here, you're going to talk about a relationship that was really significant in terms of this process. And
how do you know? Are you a fortune teller?
I
am. Are you Alaskan gypsy?
I'm the great Zorba. One other thing I wanted to mention, and I don't know if I said this the first time we attempted this recording, but Shiva also destroys our imperfections to ensure that we have spiritual progress. Or Shiva destroys our old memories so we're able to move on. And I don't think I said that. And the thing that I keyed onto right away was Daniel. So I'm not sure I agree with you that Daniel is still alive. But if he is, maybe this is the destruction of old memories for him so he can move forward.
Yes, I think that's what it is. I don't think he's dead. There's no way Daniel's dead.
I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with you. But I do think that if Daniel is still alive, destroying his memory of him as a traumatized child and destroying his memory of his wife by putting her to rest, I think that goes to the title.
Yes, I will agree with that part.
So really quickly, did not have much on the author. His name was Dave Weiner. And I could not find the Weiner on the internet anywhere.
Yeah.
I was apparently looking at the wrong website.
Yeah, wrong site.
I did find out information about the director. His name was Andrew Bernstein. And he has a lot of director credits, just a few that I pulled out real quick. West Wing, House, ER, Mad Men, The Americans. So quite a bit of directing to his credit, but this appears to be his only association with Walking Dead or Fear the Walking Dead.
Gotcha.
And then, who do you think I picked as my favorite cast member of the week, or featured cast member of the week?
Daniel.
You're so good at acting like you've never done this before.
Yeah, what? What are you talking about? This isn't just random?
Pick the girl you love to hate, and the girl that Laura Willie Swink. Oh, that was funny. Sorry, Laura. The girl that Laura Willie Swink loves to hate. Kim Dickens, a.k.a.
Gross.
Madison. I think actually we have some feedback that we'll share later that was put on the Facebook site tonight, saying that there is someone else who loves to hate Madison as well.
Oh, we got feedback? Awesome.
We did. We got some feedback already. So Kim Dickens, who plays Madison, was born in Huntsville, Alabama on the 18th of June, 1965. So she's going to be 51 this year. And I was telling Brian when we first tried this that I only really knew her from Gone Girl, but she also has a ton of credits to her name, both film and television. So another film that I wanted to bring out that she had been a part of was Blindside. And the reason I thought that was important is that T-Dog from Walking Dead proper, a.k.a. Iron E. Singleton, had a really big part in the Blindside too. So there's a connection there.
Bam.
And then she's also been on House of Cards, Sons of Anarchy, Lost, Deadwood. And seeing her name in this list of things actually made me want to go back and watch Deadwood. Which, by the way, every time I would hear profanity, like when I was taking a bath and it was coming from the living room, I'd be like, honey, you're watching Deadwood again, aren't you?
Cheapers creepers.
So yeah, I'm ready to go down that road.
All right, let's get to this. Okay,
let's do it again, right?
Yeah. What? Okay. So
So I made you go first because you actually had way more epic ratings for this than I did.
I did. So my epic is Travis and Chris parting ways with the group. I believe that once this story arc started, I'm like, are we seriously chasing after this kid? As it kind of went, and I was like, ooh, he's got a gun. Ugh, this is going to be cool. So then as it slowly started to progress, and then it's like, oh man, he's got the kid, and he's losing it, he's pointing a gun at his dad, and then he's trying to stab his dad and slash at his dad. And all that was culminating with Travis realizing that it's all his fault. And he chose his son over everybody else when the entire show he had been choosing Madison over his son. And that to me was pretty powerful, and that's why that's my epic.
So I'm going to lay it on you again because this will be the first time the listeners have heard it. Do you think, first of all, do they come back? Second, does Travis kill Chris? I mean, there's definitely a part of me that thinks that his realization and his shock was that Chris is not going to make it in this world.
He's got to take him out like Old Yeller or Lizzie.
A la Lizzie. Stare at the cacti.
Stare at the cacti. So I would say that I think we're going to see them both again. I think Travis is way too strong of a character to go away. I don't think he's going to kill him because it's too powerful for them to save him. So, and I don't think saving is bad. It's just that he is the youngest character in this group, and he never had that moment to really be taken aside like Carl. So my reference is to Carl and saying that Travis realized that he needs to intervene before he gets worse. And to intervene, he needs his father's love. A la Prison Rick burying the guns and picking up farmer gloves.
Aha. Okay.
And he's teaching Carl how to, you know what, violence isn't the answer. We need to do it this way. We need to do it the right way. We need to learn how to farm. We need to learn how to do all this stuff. And ultimately that turns sour, but this is their moment. And, when they're wrestling around the ground, he's like, I can't go back. You know how they look at me. Just look at me. And I think when Travis kind of had that look on his face, that was his way of realizing, I have been neglecting my son's emotional well-being this entire time because he has stood by Madison this entire time, not his son, who already didn't like him to begin with.
Right. And who wasn't really that keen on Madison either.
Mm-hmm.
Another Madison hater.
Yes.
So, a couple of things come up for me with that. One is I really feel like Chris did this to himself because nobody looked at him like he was a monster until he killed that kid that they were interrogating. I mean, even when he killed the guy in the wreckage of the airplane, I don't think anybody really thought of him as a monster after that.
Well, I don't think and nobody knew he killed that guy in the airplane. Nobody knew because what's her face, Alicia, came up and she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, nothing. There was one of them in there," and then they walked away.
Okay.
So nobody knew he actually killed a real person on that plane.
And so I don't think anybody really saw how out of control he was until he was like, "Oh yeah, that guy was turning."
Mm-hmm. Until he snapped.
Right.
And that's what happens in society.
Well, that's true. I mean, I think about like all of the shootings that we've had in this country over the last couple of years. And, he was such a nice guy until he lost it and pulled the trigger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so the other question I have for you is I think Chris is so far gone. I mean, I don't think that Carl ever lost himself as far as Chris has lost himself.
Maybe not. Carl killed another kid
that
was running from the prison,
Yeah.
So Carl's done his fair share of bad, in the show, but I think they're going about it differently. Whereas Carl's was more of a controlled and supervised descent into what the world has become.
Mm-hmm.
Chris was making a tailspin descent, he was just sort of spiraling out of control, and that's why he's landing where he was. Where Carl's was more of a gradual easement into a violent world. Chris's was just nuts right off the bat.
Well, when you say that, I think that's absolutely accurate. And I kind of argue back to myself exactly that kind of thing. Chris did not have anyone who was a strong moral compass. Carl had Herschel, he had Rick. I mean, he had people who were really centered and really sure of themselves. Even though they may not have been making the best decisions, they still, I don't know, they just had this good and they had this certainty that we're not really seeing in anybody in this group.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So, interesting. Well, so my epic was related because I really felt like there were some very strong themes in this episode that kind of centered around kids and then also centered around transformation. So when I think about the kids, I think about parental love and parental sacrifice around their kids and parents really working on actively saving their kids. And I think that we see that in all of the relationships, Daniel and Ophelia, Chris and Travis, Madison and Nick. Who else? Celia, as wingnut as she is or was, her entire being was around saving her kids, and she was heartbroken that she couldn't save Thomas, and she was filled with gratitude when Nick presented Luis to her, even though you and I would see Luis as a monster.
Mm-hmm. The adopted son, Tomas, was not her real son, so that was neat to kind of learn that little bit of truth to that as well. So what's your fail then?
Well, so my fail probably sounds really whiny, but I'm going to say it anyway. It is that, it just really went out with a whimper and not with a bang. I just really felt like...
this is where I made that comment where I go, oh, you mean like staring down the barrel of a Louisville Slugger?
Right, exactly. Like that was a little bit of a whimper too.
Wah, wah.
I did expect this to be bigger for a mid-season finale though, because I feel like, and we've said it over and over again, this season and this series are trying to find footing. And I don't know, I just expected something bigger to kind of bring us together.
Well, I didn't. I was very satisfied with how this went and gone. Of course, it can always be better. We can find out how the zombie apocalypse starts and all this stuff. So it can always be better, but I didn't think it was bad. I just, I'm changing your mind. You have to go back and watch after our discussions, and the viewers too. I'm going to educate America here, and then we're all going to be like, man, especially Thomas O'Mara. I seen a message in my email about what you said about this episode, mister. So, no, I'm going to change some minds. We're going to do this.
Well, so what was your fail? If you're going to change some minds, you at least have to share with us what you weren't crazy about.
So mine was Ophelia not telling the group or demanding more of what her father's doing. And I'll preface that with the answer might be on the cutting room floor of what we didn't see.
I think so too, because one of the things I said to you that didn't make it on the first record was that I was a little confused because I didn't realize that Celia had taken Daniel. I didn't realize that Daniel had been secured somewhere. So when Ophelia came marching in and said, "I want to see my dad," I was like, what?
Well, I thought maybe it was because they wanted the women.
Oh.
In the end, we know we're going to have to get rid of the dad if we're going to keep her here. Sort of the repopulation efforts.
Sure, absolutely.
And maybe that's kind of, as it was happening, that's what I thought. But then when I seen him tied up, I'm like, oh, here we go. And it's true, they were talking about, where I want to see my father. And she's like, hey, he wasn't well. He was loco. Just let me help him. I have the tools. Because Ophelia doesn't see what Daniel sees. Ophelia only sees what she sees, and she sees this Latino mother who's a caretaker of the home, which is like her home, and they have a prayer box, and she feels good about the place.
When I was watching that crazy swirling around in Celia's eyes, I was like, this episode should be called Bruja.
Yeah, so it's, it was tricky. So what I think was on the cutting room floor is them explaining to Ophelia where he's going, or hey, we're taking him for his own good. He's going to be well again. Celia will explain everything to you. Something like that. And then from that scene where they grab him, she then walks straight over
and
to
says,
her baby. Yeah.
I want to see my dad.
So I think there's stuff on the cutting room floor that we didn't get to see.
So, question about Daniel then.
No.
I was going to say, I know we have differing opinions about whether or not he survived this episode, but one of the things that Celia said to him when she was taking the Pozzoli to him was, you're dying. So, what was she referring to?
I think she sees the guilt in his face.
She does make reference to his ghosts that haunt him.
Mm-hmm. So let me Rotten Potpourri.
Oh, okay. So hold that for Rotten Potpourri. All right. So my epic was, we had jokingly said at one point that we didn't want to see the farm. So what do we have? We have a place burning down. Building. We have all these freaking walkers in the mist. I'm like, oh, I can't believe they used the farm imagery.
It's the effing farm, man. It's the effing farm.
So that really was my epic fail, just because I felt like, oh, come on, you guys. We've already done this. We've already commented on, please, God, don't let this be the farm season. And here we are.
And the only thing we were missing was the motorhome.
And the person stuck on top of it.
But we got into the back of a big old F-150 or whatever it is. I didn't see what it was.
So, yeah, I was really disappointed to see all that.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So, hey, let's hit your epic fail.
Oh, that was my epic fail.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was I not paying attention? Did I not catch that part?
It's all good.
Okay.
I snuck it in on you.
Yeah, busy. My epic fail was how Celia was so gullible in falling for Madison's, like, show me, I want to understand. I just changed my mind right now. I want to understand. And then she's like, all right, come on, let's go. So if you're a drug dealer and someone who you've only known for 2 days is like, okay, I know you sell drugs. Take me to the stash. I need to see this. Right. Are you going to take them to the stash?
Yeah, probably not.
So if someone's like, I need to understand. Okay, well, let's have a discussion about it tomorrow morning. Let's talk, and we'll see what happens. Rather than, let me take you to my stash, man. And I was just like, how did she not see this coming? But she also accepted it as her next step.
She absolutely did.
No. She was just like, thank you.
Yeah.
I get to go to the next level. Actually, no, you're going to be ripped to shreds.
But she was, in her own way, as crazy as Salazar.
But they're not dead.
Okay, she's dead for sure.
No.
You don't think so?
Nope.
Wow. All right, listeners, pipe up. Is Daniel dead? Is Celia dead? I want to know what other people think, because did I just once again not pay close enough attention?
No, you're just a hopeful. And I am here to change your mind. I'm telling you. These therapy sessions are free, everybody. iTunes, free. You can always head out to buy a Biters t-shirt. It's in the show links. Please go on and head out and buy a show shirt. That'd be cool.
Just remember to make sure you size it up properly.
Size it up.
Well, so
let's get into this rotten potpourri.
Yeah.
Pew, 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 pew. Let's do it. Okay, so while we're talking on it, Daniel and Celia are not dead. Not. So rule number 1, we never seen a body. So they're not dead. So when Daniel walks in and unlocks the gate, I'm like, oh man, she's going to like bust him over the head with something. Mm-hmm. And that's then he's going to be trapped in there and he's going to die and she's going to get out and then spoil the whole thing. I think she says something to him and he turns around and they see each other and he's like, you're the devil and all this stuff. And they get out of there. Some way, somehow, they get out. Whether he's walking out and she sneaks out behind him and he doesn't know she's sneaking out behind him, kind of a deal. because I don't think he's going to kill himself to leave Ophelia like that.
Okay, I
don't see that as that type of closure that you're referencing.
I totally did not think that these words would come out of my mouth, but now I'm looking forward to August so I can see what the hell happened. So I look at it this way. Who did we lose? Did we lose Travis? Did we lose Chris? Did we lose Nick, Daniel, or Celia, or all of the above?
Nobody.
No
deaths. No soup for you.
I don't think so.
Soup Nazi strikes again.
I don't think Nick is dead, although I think Nick is losing it. Everybody's losing it. I think there's a good possibility that Chris is gonna die, and I still think Daniel and Celia are dead.
No. So here's the other kind of component. So here's the fun twist to this. Now, after everything I just told you, what if Daniel's wife, manifestation ghost, is really his visual cloak for Celia?
Now that I am willing to see as a possibility.
Like a whole Tyler Durden freaking Fight Club kind of a deal.
Right.
Where he's going through this, and yes, he's crazy, but also in the end, his mind is putting this overlay on Celia of her. And instead of his wife walking out and be like, oh, I found you, and then drops the lighter, it's really Celia.
I think that I am willing to see that as a possibility.
So that's kind of like, well, maybe.
Because that would be a really cool trip.
So I don't think Daniel's not gonna do that. Not gonna do that. Especially in being Catholic. You're not gonna do that.
Now, I didn't take his Catholicism into account either.
That's a huge no-no.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I am willing to hear that as well, but I still think that he's crazy enough that he could have ended up going up in flames without necessarily a suicidal intent.
No.
Because how else was he making Ophelia safe and putting his wife to rest? I mean, those are the two things that his wife
because
told him
he's leaving
he's
leaving his demons behind, and now he can think clearly.
Okay, that's an interesting take. I'm willing to entertain that too.
He's not dead. There's no way.
By the way, I don't know that we mentioned it this time around, but you mentioned it last time around. We did get the reveal that Daniel was the kid who was being strangled.
Yes.
In his vision in the last episode.
Yeah. So while we thought he was just doing bad things as adults, and the mother, so that was the other thing we always talked about, the mother was always in on it. Well, the mother was only in on it because that's who he told his secrets to. So she carried that burden of not turning him in for his war crimes, stuff like that. And he always referenced Celia as the demon. She's a demon and all that stuff. And so that was cool. I was still, when he was tied up in the chair, I did think like, oh shit, she is from Ecuador. She totally recognized him.
Oh, and we still didn't get any explanation of the owls or that symbolism. So we've got that hanging out there.
Well, I think that's going to come out. So,
well, I think that does play into your insistence that Daniel is alive because he's the person who knows what that symbolism means.
Yeah, the bringer of death, man. I'm telling you.
Which is Shiva.
Or an owl.
Depending on what part of the world you're in.
Yeah, so that I think that was really cool. That's my play is nobody died out of this. Except for the poor bodyguard sap.
Well, then that just makes me even angrier because they were supposed to kill somebody this episode.
But they made everybody go different ways. And that's, I think, so here's my thing is we'll get, after 2 episodes coming back, everyone will be back together except for Daniel, or except for Travis and Chris. Because you're going to kind of see them picking up stragglers. Daniel, I hope Daniel's running around in his underwear right now. That would make me laugh.
With that crazy look.
That's just like, yeah, they're like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, huh? Hey guys, how's it going? They're like, what are you doing out here? He's like, I ran from the fire. Why are you in your underwear? Yeah, clothes are on fire. Sorry.
Stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah, or they catch him and Celia like running hand in hand, dancing through the grape fields or something. So I had that. As far as like Rotten Potpourri, there was just really these long conversations with Celia, and she had these real deep hidden meaning things. And this is not the apocalypse. This is the beginning. Life is eternal. And I think
Right. She said
Strand,
it's the end of death itself,
yeah,
which
you know,
actually is another thing when you look back to the title. So Shiva destroys and destroys and destroys until the world can be renewed.
hmm
Because the Hindus actually believe in ages of time called yugas. And when each yuga ends, the world is destroyed completely and then recreated.
hmm which I hope isn't for like another like maybe 30 years.
Well, they think we're in the Kali Yuga right now, which is one of the hardest yugas to be in. But that aside,
Oh, wonderful.
well, so that did make me think of Herschel when she was talking about that, when she said, this is not the apocalypse, it's the end of death itself. Because remember in season 2, Herschel says something like, somehow I didn't think this was what God had in mind.
Yeah.
When he was talking about, the dead rising and the dead coming back. So I thought it was kind of funny, just all of these conscious or unconscious references to the farm.
And the one thing that the person who made the most sense in this was Strand.
Again.
Yeah,
and the
he
person
made
who
the
was
most
the
sense.
most decent in all of it.
Yeah.
Again.
And they're like, dumbass, get out of the hole. Like, you're going to get us all killed. And he's like, no, I'm not. No,
Yeah.
I'm calling everybody's bluff here. I'll
Yeah.
beat everybody's ass with a shovel. I am calling everyone's bluff right now.
Yeah.
And he sure as crap did. He called everybody's bluff all the way through it.
And the fact that even though he told Madison not to be sentimental and to think of him as a friend, he came back for everybody.
Like, don't go getting all lovey-dovey on me now, girl.
Yeah.
So, but the one thing that I really loved him saying was, she's like, I need help with Nick. And he's like, what do you, with Celia? And he's like, what do you think? You took an addict who was, lost in an addict and all this stuff, and you threw him into this world, and he comes across this honest, warm mother with her crazy
her
religious
dose of mysticism. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's got his hooks in him good, and she's just like, oh, crap. Yep. And all while he's just digging a grave, he's just like, yep, I know. And she's like, get out. And he's like, bitch, I ain't done. Like, no, I am not going anywhere. I don't care. I will beat your ass with a shovel. So that was all good stuff. Like, I really enjoyed Strand making sense from the bottom of a grave.
Yeah. Once again, Strand is so much more than we thought he was.
And he even piqued her. He knew why she was there. He's like, I'm going back to the boat. You interested?
Yeah.
And she's like, well. So it's there. It's happening. One thing I do find myself concerned with is Alicia. I think she might be on the chopping block. She's the Beth in this episode, in this series, where she's always trying to find the good. She almost gets killed, but she's still trying to see that. And she's more gullible than Nick is. And I see her as starting to follow Celia as well in some facet.
Really?
Because when even Madison was standing there talking to them both, Alicia's just like, not saying a word. Like, I don't care. I like Celia. She makes good food. And she's nice. And, so it's Hansel and Gretel, man.
Well, I think if they are going to make her the Beth of this series, they've got some big build-up to do. Because at this point, they have done nothing to make me more attached to her in the way that they made me more attached to Beth. Because, I was kind of like everybody else. I was kind of like, meh, Herschel's second daughter, da, da, da. And then as they built her up, I became more and more interested in her. Easily manipulated, I guess you could say. So one of the things that I saw that I thought that really stuck out for me, and maybe it was just because she was dressed in white. I don't know. Maybe it was because Daniel was talking on the phone, as you often say.
Yeah.
I totally saw shades of Lori, pun intended, in Griselda coming back, in Griselda's ghost.
Yeah, you kind of see that going on, but it was for definitely different reasons.
Sure, yeah. I think that Griselda really did want release and wanted Salazar to be released, and I think Lori just kept coming back to torture Rick.
So let me play this different, Lily. What if the ghost of whatever her name is,
Griselda,
what if Griselda isn't a peaceful manifestation? What if she is the devil, quote
Oh,
unquote? What if she is the demon in Salazar's head?
possible.
Because the one thing that she said that stuck out to me as not being peaceful is, "You didn't bury me."
Yeah, you didn't put me to rest. Yep.
And he's like, "What? That's not fair. Like we tried, we looked.
Yeah.
You were in this giant heap of bodies that was already burnt." So that to me sticks out a little bit odd, as that maybe this isn't a peaceful ghost like Lori was.
Mm-hmm.
This was the evil manifestation in his head of like, yeah, let's wash our hands by burning this whole place down.
Now watch, we're going to be second guessing all this stuff, and then August will roll around and we'll have no satisfaction.
Yes, absolutely. It's very likely going to happen. So what else you got for your rotten poopery?
I don't know that I've
Which
got.
I was just talking about a potpourri pot, and it's like that's one thing I haven't smelled since my grandmother, way back in the day. She used to burn a potpourri pot all the time.
Really?
Yeah,
Like a boiling
yep,
pan
like
with potpourri thrown in it?
like your stupid candle warmers now.
Yeah.
Throw some water in it and a bunch of rotten flowers, and bam, potpourri. Oh,
Well,
all my flowers died. What am I going to do? Throw them in this thing of steaming water over here. It'll be awesome.
we may have to boil some potpourri in honor of your grandmother in
Yeah.
August. I don't see anything else. I really, I think we pretty well covered it. I'm not sure I'm willing to let go of my 2, but I am willing to watch it over again.
Yeah, I think you need to watch it over again. I just think there's a lot more meaningful dialogue than there was action, but still, I think it was pretty telling about Nick kind of shunning the group, kind of walking away.
Yeah, that was definitely a trip.
I didn't think I thought he was going to wind up getting in the truck, but him kind of walking off, and then Alicia seeing her brother, like, I think that's going to have bad impacts on her of, Mom, why are we leaving Nick? Like, we're leaving him. He's our family. Why are we leaving him behind? Right. I don't care what Strand says. We're leaving our family behind, and I'm not going to let it happen. So I could see her maybe jumping out of the truck. If you don't stop, I'm jumping out of this truck.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see that happening, because I don't see Alicia and Nick have always had a tight relationship, because you would see like at the hospital way back, Alicia would be strong in front of her mother, and then she would leave, and then she would jump up in bed with Nick and be like, "Hey, big brother, I love you," and all that stuff. So I don't see her just driving away from her brother like this.
I just don't see anybody letting go of Nick like that. I think that, Strand still sees him as useful. I think that Madison still feels responsible for him, and she has this weird, twisted sense of what that responsibility is. And I think you're right. I think he and Alicia are really tight. So I just don't see anybody letting Nick go. But they're also going to have to figure out, who is he now that he's in this world? Because he very clearly fits, and they very clearly don't.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. And it's just the outlying community of, why was that father and his boy out there very close to the property? There's lots of these little things like that that's just very confusing about this, because it's not like Travis ran 30 miles away from the compound. It can't be more than a few miles off property. Even
though his feet looked like hamburger.
Yeah, no, come on. I'm not playing that game, because it was all still daylight. So that's it. That's all I got. It was good. We'll talk about it some more here soon, but yeah, I love it.
So I'm just going to hit a little bit of our Facebook page, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we envision going forth for the summer.
Yes, let's run through that real quick, and then we'll give you guys your afternoon, evening, or morning back.
So this is in response to last episode, and Laura Willie Swink said, Frank Delane's father plays Stannis, oh boy, I'm going to blow the name, Baratheon? one of the main characters in Game of Thrones, which I did not know because, of course, I don't watch it. Nick is definitely my favorite character on the show. He's great at expressing emotion, especially when he saw the little girl in the parish without saying a word. Bri, I too am on the Madison Hay train. I agree with all your reasons for disliking her, and she is not the Rick Grimes of Fear. One of the great things Andrew Lincoln brought to Rick Grimes is an emotional vulnerability. We see it when he sees his first walker, when he's reunited with his family, when Lori dies. Madison has been stone cold and emotionless about this since episode 1, so we have no empathy for her. Her only MO seems to be getting things done her way. Time for her to get bit.
I love this woman.
In regards to kind of talking about what we're going to do with the episodes coming up, with our episodes coming up, Thomas Reese says, great episode, guys. In regards to zombie flicks, my top 5 go Dawn of the Dead 2004, Return of the Living Dead 1985, 28 Days Later from 2002, Zombieland, which I really like, from 2009, and of course, Night of the Living Dead 1968. And then you said you totally love the Dawn remake, so I have a feeling that is probably going to be on our list.
Yes.
Just really briefly, Thomas O'Mara wanted us to make sure that we mention that Emma Bell is in a band, and she and I guess it must be her husband, Emma and Chase Bell, are going to be performing in New York on Sunday, May 29th. And it sounds like Thomas O'Mara is pretty involved in getting that produced. So if you guys want to look for more information as far as that goes, Thomas did leave us a post showing the picture for that show. And again, that's in New York on May 29th. Emma Bell, who was the original Amy, and sounds like probably her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so this is the last thing that I'll say from our Facebook page. So Thomas O'Mara said about tonight, fear just really passes the time until the real show comes back. This episode did nothing for me, except I'm joining Brian on the Madison is horrible train. I give it 2 boring yawns out of 5. No one died, nothing interesting happened. Madison locking Celia in the cell was so predictable. We've gone through 13 episodes now, and I don't care for any of the characters. Blah.
Did I change your mind a little bit about tonight's episode?
I'm thinking that question is going to Thomas and not to me.
Well, both of you. You need Thomas, to go rewatch it.
You got to let us know, Thomas, if it changed your mind. The one thing I will say is he sounds like he's in alignment with you in terms of no deaths.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to have, just side note before I forget, if anybody wants to talk Preacher, hit us up on Facebook. We're not going to podcast, but I'll be more than happy to entertain some Preacher discussions via the Facebook group if you're going to watch that opposite while Fear is on hiatus.
And my husband actually did say he was going to watch the premiere tonight, so we'll see how that went.
Mine is DVR'd.
I may have to pick it up. It actually got a really great review, so I'm looking forward to just learning a little more about it and seeing if it sticks.
Cool.
Okay, so we are going to be taking the next 2 weeks off, 1 week to regroup and 1 week because Brian is doing some traveling for work, right?
Yes.
So we are going to podcast either on the 12th or 13th of June. That's when we're going to pick up again. And we'll do some one-offs during the off season. It looks like Fear is coming back sometime in August, Brian, which falls pretty cleanly with your prediction that they would carry us through until until The Walking Dead, Walking Dead proper. So yes. I think that's what it's going to look like in terms of podcasting. We'll do some one-offs. We'll pick up with Fear. We'll have a week or two off and then pick up with Walking Dead.
Yeah, and the movies are going to be a surprise. We're not going to tell you what the movie is ahead of time.
Oh, we're not?
No, I think it'll be fun. Let's just keep it a secret, and then when they look in their feeds and it appears in a couple of weeks, they'll know what movie we review first.
Okay, I'm going with you this time. We may be announcing in the future, but for right now...
Yeah, I just want to have some fun with this first one.
We're going to make it a surprise.
That's right.
So look for us around the 12th or 13th of June. You guys have a great time until then, and...
Take it one dead day at a time. Yay!
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.